Thank you so much for joining us for Straight Out of Savannah, Talking with Tammi. My guest, Jimmie Lee Jackson, is here, and he's going to share a little bit about what he does. Take it away, Jimmie.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jimmie Lee, or Jimmie Lee Jackson. I am an entrepreneur. I am a creative director, a fashion stylist, and also a clothing line designer. I have been working in the fashion industry, entertainment industry for a little over 5 years, or 10 years, a little over 10 years. I have worked behind some of your favorite designers. I have worked locally here in Minnesota. Here, I have worked on magazines for some of the big artists, from Kelly Rowland to Azealia Banks to Katy Perry to Naomi Campbell years ago. And I'm just a creative director. I have an art and a passion spirit that I've just been pursuing ever since then.
That is powerful. So how did you get interested in this? I mean, was this something that started like when you were in school or when you were even younger than that? How did you get your start?
You know, it's so interesting that you asked, because I never really tapped into what I really enjoyed in my inner self until I got older and I started to kind of pay attention to what was going on, pay attention to God speaking to me, I guess you could say, or my angels whispering to me on a day-to-day basis. But how I got into it, I mean, I've always enjoyed fashion. I've always enjoyed art. I've always enjoyed clothing and things of that nature. And I've always seemed to find myself geared towards that and geared towards the art aspect of things, whether it be fashion shows or magazine covers or paintings, or even down to a cover of a book that was in the library. I always found myself into it. But the way that I kind of get into it is that I remember growing up, my mother moved here. She was Liberian, and her and my father divorced. And from that divorce, I was staying here with Minnesota with my mother, and my father moved back to Memphis, Tennessee, to where his family was. And so from here, I lived a pretty basic child growing up lifestyle. You know, there was nothing crazy that really happened. I watched my mother hustle her face off, coming from Liberia, coming to America, and just making a way not only for herself, but for her young kid. I've seen her work 2 jobs. I've seen her graduate from a college, and do all those things and become a registered nurse. And that hustle just kind of reside in me as well as I got older and try to understand how life, how you're supposed to kind of go through life. And then going through the whole process of everything, as time progresses and I start to get older, it was just something about me being intrigued with fashion and always wanting to dress a certain way to replicate the magazines, or be into tune when it comes to Vogue or Harper's Bazaar and so on, and just really being inspired by that to kind of reflect into my clothing and my fashion and also my everyday life. My family kind of knows that I love clothes. I constantly am talking about the clothes from the big designers and so on. And then getting into it, I remember there were days that I had to walk to school, high school. There were days that I had to walk to high school because the bus system stopped running at a certain mileage where I lived, to where I think if you live in within a 2-mile radius, the school bus wouldn't pick you up. So I had to walk to school, to high school. So I will walk to school, about a mile or so, which was no biggie. And I find myself keeping myself entertained through this process of walking, just thinking about clothes,
Oh,
thinking about art, thinking about, I saw Tanya today. She, yesterday she had these Jordans on. She really would have looked better if she wore this type of top or this type of color or had her hair this type of way. Those were the thoughts that were going through my head as I'm walking to school on a regular day-to-day basis. If I couldn't catch the bus, or if I couldn't, find some other way to get home or to get to school. And those were the things. And then as time progresses, I didn't pay no attention to it. I just thought it was something that I was weird at, or I was always the outcast and so on. That's something I just always thought where everybody else was playing sports. They had girlfriends or boyfriends, or they were too busy doing other things and parties. That was never my case. I wasn't the outsider, but I was definitely that person that you knew of, but you didn't really know. So I wasn't the bad kid or nothing like that. I was pretty much always a good standing kid growing up. But like I said, something just always in me was just intrigued with this whole world of artistic design and creativity. And then as I got older, my mother had passed in the
Oh,
process
wow.
of I'm sorry?
I said, I'm sorry to hear that.
I am too. I am too. It's sad to hear a loss of somebody who you love so much, has such a huge inspiration in your life. But I could tell you right now, I would not be where I am had she not passed,
Oh,
which
wow.
we'll get into a lot
Let's
later.
talk about that.
Yes, I will not be where I am had she not passed, or I would not have gone down the journey that I've gone had God not taken her away from me. And for that, I hold no grudge in my heart for him doing so.
Oh,
But anyway, we'll get into
that's
that.
powerful.
Yeah, you believe it
That,
or not. I mean,
that is powerful because so many people do. Matter of fact, a lot of people turn away from God just because of, those type of situations. And that seeing that you can see the growth from that situation is powerful. Now go on.
yes, I mean, absolutely. Almost started to get teary-eyed.
It's
Uh,
okay. I just can't give you a tissue though.
oh, that's okay. I think I have one over here somewhere, uh, just in case. No, but as I got older, my mother had passed, and she kind of left. She left me with nothing. To be honest with you, there was no life insurance policy. There was no trust fund saved up. All she did was work, and I live a pretty good lifestyle because she was making good money as a registered nurse. And I always got allowances every week and so on. So my lifestyle, because I was the only child, was pretty lit for the most part. I
Right.
always got what I wanted because I was the only child. Christmases, birthdays were always, there for me. But like I said, she left me with nothing. And so she also left unexpectedly. So
That's
the
what I
family,
was going to ask that. That was
yeah,
my
she left.
question because she would be young, wouldn't she?
Yeah, she was, I want to say she was 42, and then I was 15. And
Oh
so,
gosh.
going through that transitional phase from going to elementary school and then transitioning all the way into high school was a big stepping stone for, I think, for any young adult or young teenager for transitioning, because it's a whole new life. You're
Mhm.
experiencing a whole new level of emotions and a whole new thing. So she kind of left in a place to where I kind of needed her the most.
Oh
You know?
yes.
And I
Say
didn't
that, say
understand.
that again for the people in the back.
I said she kind of left me in a space or at a time to where I needed her the most.
Yes. Yes.
And I didn't understand why this was happening, until, like I said, I got older. And like I said, I will touch on that. But she left me with my biological father. Now, some of you guys may know, some of you guys may not know, but my name is Jimmie Lee Jackson, but I'm a junior. So it's Jimmie Lee Jackson Jr.
Okay.
My mother at that time was dating a man, Jimmy, of course, who did sign his name on my birth certificate. When I was 11, maybe 12, maybe 13 years old, my mother revealed to me that my father, who I call dad, wasn't my father,
Oh wow.
and that there was a man named Dale who actually was my father. And to be honest with you, it didn't really hit me. She didn't really strike me as a surprise. Some people be, flabbergasted or scared or felt betrayed, but I didn't feel some type of way. I was actually more so intrigued.
Hmm.
And so she scheduled a day to where Dale can actually come to the house so I could actually meet him. And I said, okay, sure. And Tammi, let me tell you, this man, he spit me out. Okay, this man was my father, no doubts about it. And I accepted it. I accepted it because I knew the truth, without the truth actually being told to me. So I knew the truth, and I accepted it. And so we kind of built a relationship from that, from him being gone and so on and so forth. To this day, we still keep in contact. And then as time progresses, we went to go live with him. And my mother was in the process of moving, and we went to go live with him in his one-bedroom apartment while she was in the process of finding a new place. Hence why she died in his home, or his apartment at the time, left me at 15. And so the family decided to kind of take me in and kind of take care of me in the process until I was old enough to kind of take care of myself. And so I went to live with my uncles and my aunt at the time for a couple of years and so on. And then it was time for me to graduate, and I graduated. And then from there, I was in the process of trying to go to school. And from in the process of also trying to go to school, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know if I wanted to be a doctor. I didn't know if I wanted to be a lawyer. I didn't know if I wanted to be a fire hydrant or, a garbage man. All I knew was the fact that I had to do something, and I had to do something fast, because I know that time is very short if you don't make a decision when you need to make a decision.
Yes.
So my aunt, she asked me, she was like, well, what do you want to do? They call me Junior. So she's like, what do you want to do, Junior? And I'm like, I want to be a businessman. I want to be one of those guys who go to corporate offices, who wears a nice suits, has a briefcase, drives a nice car. He makes all the money. That's what I'm thinking in my head, right? He makes all the money. Like, he has an office in the corner. That's what I wanted to be. No matter what situation that was, that's the idea that I had in my head for myself at that time.
Right.
Let me tell you, God had a whole different plan for that. Okay.
Yeah, he has a sense of humor.
He comedian of the year every year, right?
You say I want, and he say, no, not that.
Seriously, what's the old saying? If you want to make God laugh, tell him what you want or what you want in life. Yeah, crazy. So she asked me what I wanted to be, and I told her I wanted to be, this business mogul or person or whatever of corporate America. And she says, okay.
You know what it is too. You didn't know that at the time, half of those people are mortgaged to the eyeballs. They stress the fuck out. They can't pay their bill. You know what I mean? We don't know that. That's the backstory, right?
Nobody tells you that.
No.
Nobody ever tells you that the most successful people are probably the most miserable people half the time.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, okay, do what you got to do. And so in the process of me going to school, I was still working, trying to find my way, trying to find my path, trying to figure out who I am as a person, as a young adult at that time. Mm-hmm. And so in the process of it, they had kicked me out because they thought that I wasn't contributing to the household. And respectively, I really wasn't. But like I said, I was in the process of still growing and trying to figure things out. Mm-hmm. They came from a generation to where you worked, you made it, you provided. And I grew up in a generation to where I work, I provided, but I still kind of did what I had to do. And I didn't realize until later in life. So they kicked me out, and I went to go live with my sister in the suburbs. And God bless her soul, I love her to death. She taught me a lot. She taught me how to hustle. She taught me how to make a way where there was no way. She taught me how to go into a jungle and come out a king, and I will forever be appreciative of her for her hustle mentality, because to this day, it sticks with me. And because of that, I have moved and did deals simply based off her teachings for that. And so I will always, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I said, that's powerful.
Oh, yes. Like it's a few things that a lot of people don't teach you when it comes to hustling the right way, the way you need to hustle is a rare teaching that a lot of people don't get a chance to grow up on. But I appreciate that for that. And then from there, with me living with my sister after my mom had passed, I got on my own. I started to do my own thing. I got my own place, got my own car, started to work and understand how life is officially supposed to work. And then from there, I was working at Walmart. When I first moved out to the suburbs with her, and I was working at Walmart as a CSM, which is a customer service manager. And it was pretty standard. It was a standard work day for me on a regular basis. A small situation that happened on my customer service registers, and I ended up getting fired because of it. It was nothing crazy. I didn't steal any money or nothing like that, or disobeyed or anything like that. Because people will start to think like, oh, you stole some money. That's what you're like. No, I didn't. I made enough. I didn't need to. So
I was gonna say you black too, so that always
I'm black. Right, and here
in
I am. Exactly. So here I am in the suburbs, and my job got fired. You immediately like, oh, he must have stole something, or he was this. No, that wasn't the case. It was a small mishap.
You know what I think when I hear it? I think, oh, he probably said something to somebody that they didn't like.
I've had my moments, but that didn't equate for me to getting fired because they understood me well enough to know I'm still a nice guy, but at the same time, I'm not a pushover. So,
right. Yes.
So I got fired. I got fired from Walmart, and it was the best thing that's ever happened to me.
That's awesome. I hear that so much, though. I do hear it all the time. That is the best thing, though.
It's crazy. It was the best thing that ever happened to me. And for the reason of that, it's really when God said, excuse my language, sit your ass down. It's time for you to focus on what I have for you.
Yes.
And at that moment, I was like, okay, I have this idea of being successful, but I also kind of want to do what I want to do. And I want to do something that I enjoy doing. And so I said to myself, I was like, you know what? I'm going to work from home. I'm going to teach myself how to sew and make clothes and just start becoming a designer because deep down, that's what I wanted to do. So I took the last little $800 check that I got from Walmart. I bought myself a sewing machine. I bought some fabric and I went on YouTube and I started researching everything about sewing and putting garments together and so on. And then from there, my technique turned into a skill. And from that skill, I was able to craft garments and clothes and accessories and all these things very well, simply because I was diligent and persistent in making a way because I felt that I couldn't fail.
Ooh.
I couldn't allow myself to fail in that moment because I refused to become anything but great. I've seen my mother come from Africa with nothing and make something. So it will only be right that her seed would do the exact same thing, right?
Yes.
Despite all the obstacles in front of it. So I said, okay. So I started sewing. I started creating. And then from there, I started to look at newspapers and magazines and my local magazines and things like that to, how can I invest in myself, but also have people around me who are like-minded so I can learn from them.
Yes.
Because no matter how smart you may feel like you are or how many degrees you have, you can't do it alone in this world.
I always say, no man is an island.
Not a one.
And I say that all the time. And even with clients that I've had, they're saying, well, I'm trying to do this and this and that. I said, well, did you reach out and ask for help? Well, no. I said, no man's an island. We're not even designed to be an island. I said, even when God created man, he didn't just create one person, he created two.
Mm-hmm.
Because he did not want man to be what? Alone.
Exactly.
All one. I said, so we are not an island. And I'm like you, I had to learn that as well. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. And I didn't, and also it was for the fact that I didn't want to let my mother down,
Yes.
Even though she was in heaven looking down, but I didn't want to let her down. But also I didn't want to let my family see me down because of whatever thoughts I had that they had thoughts about me. You know what I'm saying? I didn't want to be that person to where like, oh, look at Junior, he didn't succeed. He lost his mother. He become this big Shakespearean tragedy tale. Like that was my fear. Like that was my fear that was driving me. Like there's no way I'm going to be sleeping under somebody's bridge. Like it's just I would work at McDonald's, I would flip burgers, I would do whatever it needed to be done to make a way.
Yeah.
And so And so from there, I did fashion. I started creating, I started making garments or whatever, and then I started to team up with a few people locally when it comes to designing, people who are in the field of photography, people who are models, people who are entertainers, singers, whatever the case would be that I can dip my fingers into, I have my fingers in that bowl. One way or the other. I was working backstage at this, I was cleaning up this, I was working on styling this. And so from there, I just built my resume into where I started to become kind of well known backstage on just me, just being just helping, just being an assistant to whatever needed to be done.
So you
And then
put
as
yourself
time,
in that place.
I'm sorry?
I said, so you put yourself in that place.
Yeah, well, I became a
So that you,
servant.
that's what I was going to say. I was
Yep.
going there. Go ahead.
Yep. I became a servant before I became a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped me learn the foundation of everything that I needed to know that helped me to this day. That was big for me. And then from there, once I had all my eggs and ducks in a row, I kind of said to myself, I said, you know what? I can do this. Let me start creating my own brand. Let me start creating my own name for myself. Because if they can do it, then I know for a fact that I can do it. And so I started sewing, I started creating. I hired a few of my friends as models. And I was like, you need to wear this. And I'm taking pictures of it. And they were like, okay, like whatever, sure. And so from there, I would post pictures online. And then here in Minnesota, there had a fashion week. Minnesota has a fashion week. And so from there, I registered my name for one of the designers to be featured in Fashion Week. And I launched my very first clothing line back in 2012, 2013, 14, I want to say.
Okay.
And I launched my own clothing line. And then from there, just seeing my clothes on the runway in this little venue here in Minnesota just sparked a fire in me to keep going. And then from there, I kept going and I kept going and I kept going and I kept going.
That's so encouraging, because I know that there had to have been many times when you were like, you know, I don't know if I can do this, or maybe I'm thinking too big. What did you say to yourself during those times?
Tammi, let me tell you something. We're about to get into it.
I love it.
Listen, life and death is in the power of the tongue.
Yes.
And
Absolutely.
so I'm a huge believer in energy. I'm a huge believer in manifestation. And I believe whatever you put into the world will automatically be a boomerang to what you get back. And if you're not careful, if you're not focused the way you need to be focused, that boomerang would do things. You'll either catch it or it's going to hit you in the face.
That's
And
not cool.
so my thought was always being focused. And I understood from a very young age, you had to be careful of your steps. You had to be careful of what you say. And also you had to be very careful how you treat people, because you don't know what spiritual background they may have, whether it's worshiping the Buddha, the devil, or God himself. So you have to be careful of those three entities when it comes to dealing with people and just moving through life in general.
Mm-hmm.
It would save you a ton of trouble.
Yes.
And so there were days that I knew that I wasn't good enough to do the bigger things that I wanted to do. But that didn't let me down. I understood that I had to step my game up in order to make that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what drive me. There've been many days to where I've designed a shirt or come up with some idea, and I'm like, you know what, this isn't Gucci. This isn't the Louis Vuitton that I saw on the runway last week. So I said to myself, okay, well, what skill and craft do I not possess that I can be figured or be considered on the same level that they are on? And so I went out and I had to teach myself a better skill or so on and so forth to make it happen. But there have been many days that I felt like I didn't do it. After that, probably even after my mother had passed, I was still dealing with depression.
Yes.
There was a time that I was a struggling artist. When I say struggling, the only thing that kept me alive was the fact that I had a job at that moment just to pay the bills, not to buy groceries. I didn't have money to buy groceries. My brother used to work at KFC, so I used to text him every day. And for some reason, my phone was off, but I was able to text. Don't ask me how that works.
God.
It had to be God, because I'm like, how am I still able to text, but I can't make a phone call? But anyway, so he worked at KFC, and I used to be like, bro, can you please bring me some chicken? Like that's how broke I was. I didn't even have $1.75 to even catch the bus to go to work, and I was working a mile and a half away. That's how struggling I was. I was losing weight. I couldn't even pay my light bill. And it's so funny that I couldn't pay my light bill for, I want to say it for about 7 months, and my light still stayed on.
Oh, wow.
I don't know how.
God.
I do not know how. I would get the letter every month. You owe $255. You owe $375. You owe $400. This is your final notice. And I didn't have the money to pay it. But my lights were still on somehow, some way. It's only God. And every month it was the same situation. I had to go down to my leasing office and beg and plead the leasing manager, say, hey, you know what? My rent's $800. I only have $350. Can you please wait until the next pay period? Every month I did that. I'm sure she used to look at me and be like, okay, okay, fine. Like, okay, fine, whatever, dude. Like, you know, that was the case. But I was struggling. I was really struggling. That was almost my second lowest point in life was dealing with that. And then it got to a point that I'm just like, you know what? I want to get out of here. I need to move. I was thinking about moving to California. And then something happened. A transition happened. There was a lady who, for my best friend, his wife, their daughter was Spanish, and her daughter was having a quinceañera. And people who don't know what a quinceañera is. A quinceañera is just a Spanish way of celebrating adulthood in the Latino community. So they have like one big party. It will be pretty much our equivalent of a sweet 16.
It's like a
right?
coming out.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. So she was having quinceañera, and so somehow, some way, they had heard that I was designing, and word got out. And so she came to me. She said, "Hey, you know, my daughter's having a quinceañera. I would love for you to make her dress. Are you able to do it?" And so on. And I'm like, "Hey, I have nothing better to do with my life. You're going to give me a little bit of money for it. I'm not going to charge you a lot. So yeah, absolutely, I'll do it." So I made the dress. I gave her the dress. She invited me to the quinceañera, just, as a friend. So I went to the quinceañera. It was amazing. It was fun. She looked beautiful. And so she came back to me about a month later. She says, "Hey, I so appreciate you for designing my daughter's dress. She loved it. We loved it. Everybody loved it at the party. Da, 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 da. Hey, do you normally do things like this? Like, are you a designer? We're like, what do you do?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just design here and there whenever I can or whatever," and so on. But in the process of that, I was building my portfolio,
Yes.
because I knew that one day there was something bigger for me. And so she was like, "Okay, well, you're really talented." And I'm like, "Thank you. I just do this off a whim. I'm just, I'm not even that good, self-doubting myself." And she was like, "Okay, well, do you have any other work? I'm just curious." And I was like, "Yeah." So I gave her my portfolio. And come to find out, she was the buyer and vendor for Target.
Oh,
Target
wow.
Corporation. Yeah, she was a buyer and vendor for Target. And so I didn't know this until probably 2 weeks later. I just thought she wanted me to, give her book because she wanted to make more designs, not realizing that she was giving my portfolio to the execs at Target Corporation. So 6 months later, I get a call. She's like, "Hey, this is such and such. I was wondering, will you be able to kind of sit down with me and a few of the execs here at Target Corporation and kind of talk about some ideas and maybe a job opportunity?" And I was like, "Yeah, absolutely. I would love to sit down with you. Like, why not?" Okay.
Now.
So I'm like, "Okay, sure." So we sit down. I talk to the execs. The execs tell me I'm great. They tell me this. They tell me that. They tell me that they want me to work for them. Um, and immediately I knew that God was working. Immediately I knew that my life was going to transition and transform. And so I tapped into that hustle mentality that my sister had installed in me to say, "Okay, Junior, this is where the big boys play. here's what you need to do. So immediately I got on my phone. I looked up a lawyer. I didn't get on the phone. I looked up a lawyer, a local lawyer at the time, who had a very, very, very small firm. He's big now. He lives in New York, but he had a very, very small firm. And I said, hey, I am a designer. I'm with these execs. I would love for you to kind of work with me to kind of look over the paperwork. They're talking about this, they're talking about that, they're talking about this. And I went back to Target and the execs and I told them, I said, I would love to work with you, but not for you, because I understand my craft and what I'm capable of doing, because all this time I have put work into it. And so I don't think at that time I wanted to work for Target or for them at that time. I wanted to work with them. Well, they didn't like that, because they're kind of like, oh, we're going to give you some money. Why would you, turn it down? So after a couple of weeks passed, they came back to me with the contract, and the lady came back to me and said, you know what? They want to give you a chance. They want to give you a chance on your ideas. But first, they need more proof that you are capable of delivering what they're trying to expect, which is simply just money. How much money can you make us? So I immediately got on my hustle. I start sewing my life away. I start making T-shirts and samples and everything I knew that I was going to need it, that was going to need in order to show these people, but not only from a creative standpoint, but also from a exec and business standpoint, to show them, hey, this is what the people want. It's the basic, quote of economics, supply and demand. They are demanding this. We're able to supply it under your wing. I'm able to deliver. They were like, okay, but when it comes to it, we're not going to give you anything. We're not going to give you. Well, first of all, they gave me a small budget. Small budget to make the clothes. No promo. I didn't get any promotion off of it. No marketing behind it. No anything. They was like, okay, we'll give you a small budget. We'll allow you to make one season of the clothes, and then we'll kind of go from there to see how well it does. Pretty much kind of set me up for failure, right? Because how do you know about somebody coming out in a major corporation without any marketing promotion, nothing like that, right? Nobody knows, right?
Right, yes.
Except for the people who work there, or maybe the people who, go in and out, and kind of see it. So I said, okay, you know what? I'm gonna take this. And so I put my heart, soul, and spirit into that little collection that could for Target. I had one Z-Rack, which is just a rack of clothes, to where my clothes were sitting in the men's department. No signage, no marketing, just clothes sitting on the rack of the rest of their clothes on the rack. Through God's grace, I told everybody. I was like, my clothes is in Target. My clothes is in Target. My clothes is in Target. Nobody believed me. Nobody believed me. Because I've been talking about this for a while. I'm like, I'm in the process of doing something big. You guys need to pay attention. Nobody believed me. They put my clothes in the rack. One by one, people started to go to Target. Now, mind you, it's only in one location. So you had to go to this location specifically to see my clothes on the rack with no sign or nothing. The only thing that's available is just my name on the tag, right? Oh. So I told them one by one, people started to get it, and it started to catch on like fire. It started to catch on. It started to catch on. And next thing you know, this clothes sold out. The quarters. I go back to the execs. I sit down with the execs at Target Corporation. And I said, hey, so how do I do? They were blown away. They were like, how is this possible? You're unknown. You're a designer. We didn't give you no marketing. We didn't give you no promotion. We didn't even give you an email address for people on our website to even find your clothes. The only way to find my clothes was to actually go to this specific one location, and people bought it. People bought it. That's when they came back to me and says, hey, let's work something else out. And immediately from there, I was like, okay, let's really talk business. And from there, I did 7 seasons of clothing from there. And then from there, it was history.
So. Oh, that's a hell of a ride. Yeah. Say something. Your sound is, I don't know if it's my end or yours. Yeah, it's like really low though, and it just did that like just now. So I don't know if we did something different. Okay, but anyway, we're gonna close out anyway. Um, I'm so super excited. Your story is amazing. If you haven't thought about it before, I think you should write a book. But you know, that's just the author of me. Oh gosh. But anyway, this has been so amazing. I got my own nuggets. I've been writing down stuff because I always take notes. And I just like the fact that you knew that God was at work in your life. And I mean, that is like so key. And people don't realize that, you know, and even because that small budget that they gave you just was enough to get you in the door, but they didn't even recognize that. But you knew. And that is the most important thing. I mean, I think from all of that, that's what I get from it. So, anyway, we're going to get off of here because I have so enjoyed this. I could talk to you for another 30 minutes. So maybe we'll have to do it again because it's been fire. Because I didn't even get to talk about the painting yet.
Oh my
But
God. Or even the other ventures that I've done with other people, with Target Corporation and Nordstrom's Rack and locally.
it's powerful. I mean, you have an amazing story. And I'm grateful that, you know, that you graced my platform to share. So just let the people know where they can find you on social media or if you're a website or whatever, so that they can connect it when they need to.
Absolutely. As of right now, I'm in the process of working on some other ventures myself when it comes to artistic creative design, including paintings and painting in general. As of right now, you can reach me at Facebook/Jimmie Lee. My name is Placer back panel itself, but yeah, so just Facebook/Jimmie Lee. I'm available not only for consultations, but also for advice. My messages and things of that nature are always open, so please don't be afraid to reach out to me or add me as a friend. You can kind of see my crazy life through social media and hear about my life interests that I have and just be inspired overall, you know, to kind of walk in your purpose and do what it needs to do and, you know, fly.
Yes, 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 I agree. All right, so we're going to pop off here. I really appreciate you listening, or if you're watching us on YouTube, thank you so much. I really do love bringing amazing humans on to speak their truth and to talk about, you know, how they are changing the planet. And definitely, Jimmie, you are changing the planet. Planet. So again, thank you so much for watching Straight Out of Savannah, Talking with Tammi. Make sure that you follow us on YouTube as well as Anchor FM and Spotify. And because we're going to be doing some amazing, awesome things in the future. Have a wonderful rest of your time. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye now.